This is INCRadio, DZEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't be afraid to take the baby steps. It's another day, don't forget, 'cause just a prayer away. Don't give up now, trust the process and keep learning. And if you need a friend, we're in this together, together, together. We're in this together, together, together. We're in this together, 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 together as a family in faith and melody.
Hello, hello, greetings and salutations, and welcome back, everyone, to another week of INC Radio's Faith and Melody. This is the place where we have meaningful conversations and also listen to inspiring INC or Iglesia ni Cristo original music. I will be one of your hosts on today's broadcast. This is Jay broadcasting live all the way here in Australia, but also joining me today.
Hello, hello, everyone. I'm Belle from the United Kingdom, and looking forward to having you to joining our conversation for today.
And I'm Henry here in Germany. Family relationships is what we're talking about today because family relationships are some of the most meaningful and sometimes the most challenging connections in our lives. So, in today's episode of Faith and Melody, let's talk about how communication can strengthen family bonds, from listening with patience to expressing ourselves with kindness and respect. So, let's get the show started with the first song on our playlist, another INC original music song called Kahit Ako Ay Bata. You stay with us here today on Faith and Melody.
Kahit ako ay bata, walang malay sa buhay at pamumuhay. Nangangailangan ng patnubay. Ang usmos kong isip, tinuturuan. Mga pangaral ni tatay, mga payo rin ni nanay. O sa aking kabataan, pahahalagahan ang mga paggabay. Aking uunawain, aral sa akin na utos ng ama. Aking susundin, aking gagawin. Sa'yo, Ama, ako'y tulungan na sa aking paglaki. Huwag akong mahiwalay sa'yo. O sa aking kabataan, pahahalagahan ang mga paggabay. Aking unawain, aral sa akin na utos ng ama. Aking susundin, aking aking pagtanda nang madatili sa iyong kawan. Makakita
morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. This is INC Radio's Faith and Melody, where it is currently 12:07 a.m. over in our main studio in the Philippines. So later on this show, we're talking about how better words, patient listening, and faith can help build stronger bonds within our families. So that and more on today's topic, better words, better bonds. But as always, before we dive into our discussion, let's begin with our kickoff chat.
Our icebreaker is titled Life Form Survival Kit. You're willing to take up as
Kickoff chat.
So, for our kickoff chat question today, we're asking describe, we're going to ask you to describe, right? Describe each member of your family with one word, which could be difficult sometimes, perhaps. But if you were to describe your family member, and we're going to go around the panel, we'll start with Belle, right? But basically, we want to ask as well, those who are tuning in live with us there in our chat, we can see your messages. Drop down in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Send any greetings and shout outs that you've got there. But also, if you want to join us, answer this question. Describe each of your family members with one word. And hopefully, we get some really nice ones there. But before that, before I pass it over to Belle and to Henry, let me quickly read out some of our early greetings there in our chat. Of course, we've got Ate Priscilla Batan that's been greeting us. The first greeting that I see there in our live chat. Good day po to all beloved brethren around the world. Happy watching po, Faith and Melody from Rizal. And she's greeting all of us saying, bless, stay blessed and keep strong po. Of course, our Kuya Rod Kahayag is there saying, hello, hello, everyone. Hello, Faith and Melody. Hello. Greeting all of us and saying happy Monday or Tuesday. Of course, Kuya Mario Oka as well. Happy watching there in the Philippines. He's saying greetings from Local of Brixtonville, District of Caloocan North. We've also got Ian Andres. So hello in Tagalog. He says, pagbati po from the Local of Binangonan, Rizal. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Magandang gabi, madaling araw po sa lahat ng mga kapatid na nakikinig sa Pilipinas. So hopefully I pronounced that correctly as well. And hello as well to Jane Aching there saying hi po everyone. Happy viewing Faith and Melody. Greetings from Ecclesiastical District of Northern Africa, local congregation of Awasi Extension, Kabiri, Kenya po. So thank you to everyone that's tuning in. But yes, if you want to join us in a kickoff chat, let us know. Describe each of your family member with one word. Belle, you have the most people in your family with siblings and all. Maybe you can start us off or kick us off in our kickoff chat.
Well, Jay, uh, it's I have four siblings, so it's like five of us in total, and like my mom as well. So yeah, it's six of us. But yeah, let's start off with my ate. Because there was this question that was posed towards us, like me and my siblings, like which is like the heart, which is like the brains or and stuff like that, for each sibling, right? Because each sibling bring a different dynamic, like when we're all together, right? So
That's true.
from what I can say, like just one word is difficult, but that doesn't mean that they're just that one word that I'm gonna be describing them with. But at Erica, for me, like within our siblings, she's the brains. Like she's really on top of things. She's really type A uh type of person. But that's not but that's those are not the only qualities that she has. But for me, in one word, the brains.
Brains,
And
okay.
then for Arian, since we have mentioned her laugh many times, joy. I think she's
Joy.
the joy within our siblings. Yeah. And when it comes to Sam, Sam might be more quiet than most of us, but he's always there somehow and like always present. So it's just like how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it. Because he also loves like engineering and doing uh crafty stuff. So saying IT can kind of In terms of IT, I don't know because they're in the background, but things work out because they're in
Techie?
the background as
Techie?
well. Techie. Let's call him Techie. Okay. Okay, and then for Dan, it's kind of hard because since he's the bunso or the youngest within our siblings, he's kind of like a mix of everything since he like we he grew up with all of us. And since he is the youngest, he absorbed most of our traits as well. But in one word, sporty. He really loves sports. He does so many sports even in school, like after school, in the after school activities. So that's something that um, really uh, really he's really passionate about. And my mom, it's hard to describe her in one word because like moms are like superhuman beings. Like they have that superhuman energy. I'm not saying that dads don't have them, but like because you and Henry are dads.
Yeah.
But
Thank
like
you.
when with my mom, since it's just my mom as of now, um yeah, um patient and loving. Yeah, I'll say
Yeah.
two words from
We'd go with two. Deserves
yeah.
it. Okay, so that's those are the ones from Bell. And how about you, Henry? Can you share with us for your family unit?
I'm gonna start with my wife, and the word I'm gonna use is very simple: is wife, because
Yeah.
she's a wife. I mean, uh, I don't know how else to describe it in terms of like she everything you would imagine a wife to be is a purpose and good and bad and everything in between. She's a wife and she's my wife. So if I could put a hyphen there, my wife. That's the word I would use. Um, and then my eldest child, she is very adaptive. So I would use the word adaptive because she can pick up anything and just learn it so quickly, and even find additional symbolism and value to things that she picks up. And then my youngest, my bunso, I only have two daughters, two children. I would call her a hyphenated word, emotionally intelligent, because she can really feel the room very, at only 7 years old, turning eight in about 3 weeks. She's really good at picking up the emotional vibe in a room. And she'll play off of that, whether it's a heavy vibe of negativity. Unfortunately, when you go to some places, you feel that, or positivity. She'll be the what's the word? The reflection of what is actually around you. She's the gauge, the emotional gauge. How she reacts is how she will determine what's going on with everyone in their situation. And if I'm gonna describe myself, uh, I don't know, dad, husband.
Yeah.
I mean, I do what I can. I do my best. So my mom, just because I still have my mom, I would describe her as retired because she worked so hard and she deserves all of that rest and ability to travel and enjoy that life there in the Philippines. I think she's in the district of Cabanatuan, and so she is really enjoying it there. So retired, it basically says she's worked hard and she deserves her time to enjoy life at this point. So that's my final answer. Jay, what
Nice.
about you?
Nice. I like that. Okay, so for me, so Gem is it's already in her name. My description of Gem, she's a gem, right? Gem is pretty much it. She is like the most precious thing that kind of keeps us all in one moving in the right direction, right? She's a gem of everything. And the heart. She's the heart. So I don't know if that's two words, but basically gem. She's a gem, but she's also the heart of everything that we do. But with Lena, I think I'm gonna go. There's so many words it's coming to mind, but I'm gonna go with energetic because I think her energy is like one of the highest things that we have. That she brings, she lifts up the energy wherever or whatever part of the day. There's always something going on, and she's always running around. She's always climbing everything. She's very very energetic for a girl. She's 8 years old, and I don't know if I said like for a girl, but can't say that girls aren't energetic, but she's just very energetic even late at night. So I'm gonna go with energetic. But before I pass it over to you, Henry, if you can read a couple of the comments there in chat. I also want to read. I just saw this one in chat from Kuya Roy. Kuya Roy Kahayag actually has a birthday greeting. He says here in the chat, "Happy birthday!" A shout out to April Labson, Chriselle's awesome, beautiful sister. So happy birthday! Shout out to April. Hopefully you enjoyed your birthday. And also shout out to the entire Kahayag family out there. But is there any other comments there in chat, Henry, that I might have missed?
Yes. So we have to answer our kickoff chat question from Kuya Rod. One word to describe my family members. Chriselle is there's a hyphen in there. Beautifully resilient, and that's the you want to call it a cheat code. I just make two words with a hyphen. Uh, and then Journey is beautifully awesome. And so yeah, that uh, it's like a magnifier or exponential factor to add those two words together. And then Ian Andres says there are only four of us in our family. Mom would be selfless. Dad would be fighter. Kuya would be hard headed, and me would be just cute. So I like that. That's very what's the word? Genuine answer from Ian Andres. So thank you to all of you who have participated in our kickoff chat for your answers, and it kind of gives us a little glimpse of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about family today. So what a good way for us to start. But that has been for today our kickoff chat.
Our another word titled Life Transform. Let us know if it's something that you're willing to pick up as a
Kickoff chat.
So before we begin our discussion, we're going to listen to one more song first, and then we'll start our conversation about better bonds and our family. So the song that we'll be listening to is the song not One Together, but Together. A little dad joke for you there. Together. So stay with us here on Faith and Melody.
Thank you, Father, for our family. This wondrous blessing you've given us. Despite the trials that we face, you strengthen us in our faith, and we trust in your
topic is called Better Words and Better Bond because family is one of God's greatest blessings. Now, we want to maintain our family bonds, we want to stay strong with our relationship with one another. So, our first question that we're going to ask today is, in your opinion, how can small daily conversations strengthen family bonds? Are you the type to talk to your family members on a day to day basis, especially if you're in the same household? How do you interact when one enters the door? Do you say a friendly greeting, or do you immediately unleash your emotion because you had a bad day at work or a good day at work? Uh, but how does that interaction play? So how can small daily conversations strengthen family bonds? I want to ask Belle this question first because I think she has a interesting answer, a very modern answer, right, Belle? So I'm going to ask the question one more time. How can small daily conversations strengthen family bonds?
Well, Henry, within like our siblings group, um, we had a group chat on one of the social medias, and what we do, since like we don't get to see each other that often, although we live in the same house because we're just busy, like life happens and we have different schedules, but we always send each other like videos that are funny or just relatable, and you're like, oh wait, we should go here, or it's just so funny. And um I think that at the end of the day, even though we're not really like texting each other or saying or doing that small talk, um it's just something that still reaches uh like it's it's a way for us to still reach out to each other, and we still feel that you know that small little thought, like, oh, they thought of me today, oh, I thought of them today. And it's just fun because most of the time it could be like the most random post or video, and you're like, oh yeah, this is funny. And most of the time they tell me, oh, I've already seen this. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still funny. Like, react to it. But yes, I think it's those things like nowadays that we can make the most of. And also, like, even though sometimes like we're really tired from work or school, um, especially with Arian, what I do is just go to the other room, and I just started telling them about something so random, like tell about my day or something like that. And I always tell them like, please, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, like let me debrief. And then it just ended up being like half an hour or even longer. But I think at the end of the day, it's just like nice to have someone that listens to you, or like you can talk to at the end of the day. And it doesn't have to be anything specific. I think the beauty of it is just anything random. Like, oh, I saw this type of bird today. I was like, oh, I saw a little and fluffy dog like walking towards work. Like it's those small things that really like bring joy not only to your life but also to them while you're sharing that with them, Henry. But what about you? Like, what's something that you guys really talk about, or if you talk about, like, I don't know.
So I want to reflect on what you said first because there you can see the generational gap. Is that probably me and Jay can relate to this in our generation. Uh, our family conversations would be when we all came home from work and we're watching one big TV in the center of our living room. And while the TV is going, we're talking about our day, but we're watching the same show. So this was roughly about telling our age, about 30 something years ago, right? When we were growing up. And so uh, the modern version basically is what Bell described as the modern version of it. That you can't really sit around the same TV anymore, and uh, you can't all be together at the same time and place. So what do? You watch a cool video on social media, and you share it amongst your family members, so that when they have the chance to see it together, a very convenient thing, very technologically telling of our time today is that you can enjoy things without being together. But that conversation is what keeps the bond alive because we all have the same sense of humor. You're all gonna laugh at the same thing, but basically, it wasn't the same way in my generation. We all physically had to be there around that one TV, and we had to help each other out. Uh, of not help, but I would say, uh, I want to watch this show. I want to watch that show. What this show? You start arguing for the remote, and in that arguing for the remote, you're actually arguing for time together because you're actually looking for something that you all can enjoy as a family together. And usually, my dad would win because he's the dad, and we watch sports. And that's how we would actually enjoy sports. We would watch all of that together, and then we start to become very fond of professional football, very fond of professional basketball, and it was just our way of bonding. It was the conversations that weren't really always direct about a particular topic, but it was the shared admiration of our top basketball player or our shared uh, passion for our football team to win. And especially, we get to watch all these games live being in Hawaii, and we could enjoy it all together as a family. Um, Yes, and that's how our bonds were together. We had to be around the TV and communicate that way, and it strengthens the bond because we're physically all there. We're forced to be together. So, Jay, I don't know if you can relate to that in that similar sense of being around a single TV or a single physical location. Belle basically kind of just plugged in the generation capabilities that she has with sharing memes and cool videos. What can you say about this? Your small daily conversations and how your family bonds were strengthened when you were growing up, even now.
Well, what generation are we in? What generation are we, Henry? Are
So
we? Are
we
we?
are we're the millennial generation or Generation Y. Belle is part of Generation Z, and anyone born after 2014, I think, is Generation Alpha.
Oh, okay. So yeah, earlier, earlier when I was younger, right? So basically, the conversations happened around the dinner table. Well, around food. It may not have been the dinner table, but basically, food was involved. So as long as there was food to share, right? Generally, that is the time. It's usually like after work when we would catch up, and there would just be around food, and basically we'd be catching up on our day. Because I think the most important thing about strengthening any bond, family bonds, friendship bonds, whatever it is sharing, right? If you are able to share something. So not only are you sharing food when we were younger, but you're able to share what you went through for that day, right? Or what you've been through in the past week. Because sometimes, especially with families that start working and they have to go to work, sometimes they have to travel far, right? You don't see them that often and your schedules don't line up. You don't get much chance. And, we're also busy with so many other things, responsibilities for our church duties and so forth. There's not really sometimes times throughout the week where you're able to catch up with each other and just see what's like what's happening, what have you been up to. So it's basically when you're able to share those moments, share those connections, and have like a sit down thing to be able to connect with them. It keeps everyone connected. I think the way to stay connected with people is to continue sharing your time with people. They say time is gold, time is precious, and if you are able to share your time with someone and have a nice conversation about anything, it could be about what happened in your day, it could be about what you're going through, it could just be about talking about your favorite TV show. It's a way for you to connect. And I think connection is very important, but sometimes neglected in some family moments because everyone just gets too busy. So, that's why it's very important that we always remain connected through talking, through communication, through sharing. Sharing is caring, guys. So that's the main thing. That's why I think you can strengthen any bond, especially family bonds, if you are able to find time with each other to share, right? And it's nice if you can share food as well. But I'll just quickly say hello to a few people in our chat. Hello to Jane, to Kuya Rod, to Rachel in Essentials there, greeting all of us from the District of Central Europe, local of Heidelberg. Of course, Kuya Mario Calvello is there. Happy viewing, everyone from Central Europe. But also, Jane shares a couple of things, insights with us here. She says, small daily conversations can strengthen family bond by bringing each member of the family closely and united by either sharing happy moments. Well, and Rod also shared with us small daily conversation helps strengthen family bonds because it's like building a snowman. Every piece of snow you keep adding will become the snowman you want it to be. I like that analogy. I like that picture, right? If everyone is adding to that snowman, you end up creating whatever it's going to become. So it's important that everyone plays a little role, like shares a little bit. It's by sharing, right? Sharing is important. Henry.
Yeah, so just to fast forward it back to present, I picked up my daughter from school today, and that's I think one of the purest things is when your child wants to tell you about their day. And so I'm always opening my ears and stopping everything I'm doing as I'm driving, paying attention to the road, of course, but I'm letting her tell me about her day with whatever emotion that comes out because I want that raw energy, raw emotion, happiness, or even maybe not so happy at times to just come out. So then I can be a parent and respond effectively to how she went about her day. And so I need to listen. I really need to open my ears, not just to hear the words, but to even hear how she says it. So, next question we're
Mm,
going to ask is, do you think listening is just as important as speaking? Because when we have our conversations with our family members, our loved ones, uh, we're always so excited to share about how our day went. And just to quickly answer the question, just because I kind of already started, my daughter, she wanted to share about her day today, about some of her concerns that she was kind of nervous about. But then she told me, Daddy, and it's this proud daddy moment. I got straight A's for this quarter, Daddy. Like, oh, yay. I'm celebrating that as I'm driving. Um, and how do I respond to that? I respond with as much, um, it's not just being proud, but it's also more of like because she did it again. This wasn't her first time. It's I want her to not feel the pressure to always get the straight A's, but to also just celebrate the amount of effort and the amount of rewarding feeling you get from all that effort being put in. So I listened to her intently. We talked about her grades, all of what she did, and it was to me as a parent very rewarding. But I think she needs to know that I was happy with that. So listening to me in that particular moment, opening up my two ears while she uses her one mouth to express everything. I think that's why we have two ears, right? Listening is more important to me, my opinion. Listening is much more important to than to just speak because as you listen, then you're confirming, you're acknowledging. It's like a sandwich, right? The words that come out of their mouth and you're pairing it together with your ears to make a sandwich of a nice conversation. That's my symbolism for today. So I'm gonna bounce it off right back to Jay. Do you think listening is just as important as speaking?
more important. I agree with you, Henry. From my experience, listening is more important than you speaking. I used to be the type that would listen, but not really listen so that I can understand what the person is saying. But I used to just be listening so that I can then say the next thing, like that's on my mind, right? So I think what's important when you have to remember about listening is that you want to listen to understand what the person is saying, because listening is more than just your ears as well. Yes, we have two ears, but we also have two eyes, right, Henry? Two ears, two eyes, because body language, right? You can see when they're saying something to you. You can also see their body language, right? You can see if maybe whatever they're saying, but then you can see that they're almost at the verge of tears, right? If you're not using your eyes and you're just waiting to so that you can speak your mind, you're not really listening. And I've learned that over the years, that the importance of using not only your two ears but also your two eyes to see and to also hear truly what the person is trying to convey, because you'll hear it in their tone, but you'll also see it in their body language, the unspoken words, right? The unspoken conversations that people have or relate to you, right? And if you're not using your eyes and your ears as well in communication, like they're very important as well. It can make it much more difficult to fully understand completely what the person is trying to convey. So I like that example that you shared, right? But you can see it in like your child's voice, or you can see it in your child's actions when they're really proud of themselves when they've achieved something. And maybe for a parent, it might not be the biggest thing for us, but for them, they might have worked so hard for it. And if we see that effort, if we're paying attention, we see that they're staying up studying hard, or They really worked hard to try and achieve that goal that they had, right? Or we have a friend that's trying to accomplish, their studies, and then you see all the late nights and all the hard works and all the sacrifices they put in. Like you need to pay attention to that so that you can become closer when you're celebrating, and you can actually understand like what they went through, like all the challenges that went there. So understanding, in my opinion, comes firstly from listening well, and not just listening with your ears, but for me, I add on to what you said, Henry. Listen with your eyes as well. So it's funny, you can listen with your eyes, but yeah, listen with your eyes and listen with your ears.
And that makes total sense. Is that there's the we're gonna talk about that later about the nonverbal aspect of communication, which is looking at body language. So I think that is very important to acknowledge that you have not just two ears but two eyes. So that's four parts of your body is meant to absorb uh, aspects of the conversation. So that actually it makes it more meaningful, uh, bringing that part up. And so, Belle, if I can ask you, let's because you had mentioned that you're so excited about the day, you go into the room and you want to tell your siblings about something, so about your day. But what if they weren't listening to you? You're so happy to talk about it, but maybe they just weren't paying attention in that 30 minutes that you were happily expressing. So I think I'm kind of pushing towards the agreement with Jay that listening is the confirmation. Listening is the mirror. Listening is the handshake, or the is the what's the word? It makes a sandwich complete, right? One side, the other side. What are your thoughts, Belle, on that?
Well, Henry, um, I totally agree with what's been mentioned so far, because at the end of the day, um, we always want someone to, make us feel heard, make us feel um, understood. So those little things that we share with other people, like I share with my siblings, um, it might not be as significant to other people because it's just like a random thing that just comes through your mind. But, it's also a way to still connect with them, because you don't have to have those like live serious conversations all the time just to connect, right? It's those little things that really do bring joy. And I think listening is really important as speaking, because it's about mutual, having that mutual thing, because you have a receiver and you have um, a messenger, right? Like, I don't know, like when it comes, you have two for a reason. It's not just one, right? So it's just like a two-way system. And also, Jay mentioned about like the importance of understanding, right? And I can agree that that is really important as well as remembering, because you're not just listening to like answer, right? The whole reason why we're also listening is that we also absorb and, like, of course, like, understand and also remember. Because what better feeling is when you're talking to someone and they bounce off a small detail that you shared with them like a long time ago, and you're like, wait, you remember? So yeah, although it's just like maybe the most insignificant detail of the story, but the fact that they remembered really, really makes a bigger impact than just listening in silence. And I feel like that is really something that makes like a conversation or a everyday conversation uh much more beautiful, in my opinion, Henry and Jay.
So I think that's the secret. If there's any single guys out there who just heard what Belle said, listen to the small details of what she says, and then play it back to her 1 year later, and she's really smiling right now. So I mean, that's the key to her heart. I think is that listen for that small detail. And you're like, oh, there you go. Anyway, so yes, we all agree listening is super important. Uh, Listening allows us to confirm what the other person is saying. It allows them to not feel alone. It makes them feel like someone is acknowledging their presence. Um, but like Belle mentioned, there are some times where you're gonna have those more serious conversations, and sometimes it's even confrontational. And when those confrontational conversations, we call it interventions at times, or someone wants to be honest, or someone wants to kind of reveal something that someone said that maybe it hurt them, or maybe it's just not so normal in your family to talk in a certain way. So, next question we're going to ask is, in your experience, why is it sometimes harder to talk to family than friends? Because when we see our friends, whether it be in the workplace or whether it be at school, our colleagues, hey, how's your day? How's your weekend? And you start sharing how your weekend was. Weekend was great. Oh, my weekend was horrible. But you're all talking together for the first 10, 15 minutes at work, sharing your coffee. And then when you come home, maybe you run out of energy from work and you're not so, the word is peppy. And you come home and maybe your family sees the more, not the worst side of you, but whatever's left over because really work has strained you out in that way. Or maybe your family environment is a little different from what you grew up in watching all these TV sitcoms, and it wasn't as textbook of what the quote unquote perfect family is. It becomes harder to speak in a certain way. Maybe you just, it was a different environment. Everyone comes from a different place, a different culture. For me, Hawaii is a little different. I'm one of three brothers. We didn't really express our feelings too well. We could only talk when doing an activity, like Jay said, eating or watching TV or playing sports. It's not like we would sit on a table in a serious mood and confront each other about, you said this to me, I'm hurt. It was never like that. Although I've seen some families do that, and that's great. And that's actually how I'm training my kids to be, is to be, we sit around, we talk, a family hour type of setting, and when we just discuss, oh, you hurt your sister's feelings because of this, or I, me and my wife will have to converse and be open about the conversation. So Jay, maybe it's a good generational transition. Um, why is it sometimes harder to talk to family than it is to talk to our friends?
So this is coming from my own experience, Henry. The challenges that I had growing up when it came to talking to family, I think it stemmed from not knowing, not knowing how to, right? Especially when you want to talk about, what challenges that you're facing, right? When you're much younger, and I'm talking about like single digit age, we're still like maybe young teenagers, right? Or maybe at that age group, like when you're still like 11 or 12 years old. That's what I'm thinking of, right? You just don't know how to bring up certain points and how to talk about certain things because, at least in my mind, I'm always worried about getting in trouble, right? And I didn't want to like burden, or I didn't want to like get in trouble, right? So that's probably one reason why I found it hard when I was younger. Um, but I think now, once I entered adulthood and all of that, I think one of the reasons that I've noticed, especially when I was away a lot, right, is that when you come home from work after a long day's work, you've faced all of this. You have to solve all of these problems. You had to deal with this from the boss. You had to deal with this with other people. You had all these things that you had to figure out, and all this demands on you, right? And you've had to socialize, and I'm kind of like the introvert, so a lot of my social battery is pretty much depleted by the end of the workday. And you come home to your loved ones. If you haven't prepared yourself enough, if you haven't rested enough mentally to recharge a little bit so that you can give the same amount of energy that you gave at the beginning of the day, it's not going to be there at the end of the day. You know what I mean? It's like you've traveled maybe like an hour and a half. I used to drive like 3 hours, just like an hour and a half to work, an hour and a half back from work, and a lot more in between, right? So after all the talking, all the socializing, all the problem solving, all the decisions and choices, and all of those things that you have to deal with at work or at school or whatever, and you come home to your loved ones, unfortunately, I've come to realize that the energy is just not there. Right? You're tired, right? So I think it becomes harder because you just don't have the energy to give. So what I've learned, and I don't think it comes up later in the discussion. So I just want to say at this point that what I've learned is before you come home to your loved ones, you need to give yourself time to recharge before you come home, right? So like don't walk through the door straight away because there's going to be demands there already, right? Like, your family's going to be there, the kids are going to be there. There's going to be questions and answers like how's your day and all that. And the socializing aspect is that's part of it as well, right? And it's kind of just another more thing that needs to come out of your energy that you've already depleted. So you need to like re-energize yourself. So whether it's coffee, whether it's food that you grab before you enter through the door, whether it's going for a quick 30-minute gym session before you come home, right? Just to give yourself time to rest and to get out of that headspace of work and to give yourself a little bit of recharge, right? Because again, you want to give the best of yourself to your loved ones. And you don't want to give what's left over to your loved ones when you come home at the end of the day. So I think that's one reason why I found it harder before. I didn't realize the importance of I have to give more, right? I have to give even more when I come home to my loved ones because they're my family, they're my loved ones. But I didn't realize that I had nothing left to give because wasn't taking care of myself, right? I wasn't giving myself a little bit of rest in between work and the transition as soon as you step foot in your home. So that's just one thing that I want to put out there is that it's important to have these conversations. It's important to communicate, but I think that you need to also be in the right headspace. So you need to give yourself like 30 minutes or something short, just to clear yourself, recharge yourself, grab some food, grab coffee, whatever it is, before you step in there, because you want to give the very, you know, you want to give more than the leftover energy that you have left at the end of the day. So yeah.
So basically reminded me that when we work out, when we exercise, if you work out intensively to the point where you're maximizing or you're maxing out on the weights that you lift, your muscles need to go through a cool down period. So you start to do
Yes.
stretching and cooling down. Imagine if you were to go straight after you do your hardest workout. I don't know if you're the type to grunt as you work out, Jay, like, "Rah!" you're yelling as you're lifting your heaviest weight. You put the weight down and you go straight outside and you go straight into your car and you go home with all that energy. Raw, you're still grunting on your way home. And then you go into your house and you still have the energy. Your family's gonna see you as if you're still hot. You're still bursting with strength that you want to lift 2 bags of rice in the house or something. But that's why we have a cool down period. Like we have a transitional period where you kind of tell your body, we're done working out, we're done exercising for today. You don't have to work so hard. So let me cool down, let me stretch, take a shower, and then you exit the gym. And then when you face your friends and your family, you have exited that mental space of exercise. At least that's for me because I do need to cool down or kind of take it easy as I exit the gym. So I think that transition is very important. Exactly what you said, that when we enter our home, the stress that we have, we can't bring that into the house. It will just not be good for anyone around us, ourselves, and to our family. That we need some space to transition into walking into our home. And I think that's a very important thing, a very important message that I think we can all learn from that is because it'll be harder to talk to our family in that particular moment. It would just be difficult, and you're going to be seen in a different light from your family. You want to be able to come to your family in the best light possible. So, I want to jump to our next question ahead, but before we do that, Bill, we had some comments that came in answering some of our questions. If you have the ability to read some of those from our last one and including our current question.
Yes, of course. So, as I can see here from my screen, Rod said here, um, listening is probably more important to me. When you listen in seriousness, you acknowledge them and help each other instill new growth. Do everything with love. And he also shared an acronym here, listening in seriousness to each other's new instilling new growth. So thank you for that, Rod. And we also have here Mariko Vela saying, listening makes others feel heard, valued, and respected. And Jane said, listening is important as speaking because for us to understand what is said, we must listen first. We should be slow in speaking and fast in listening. And I love that. Absorb first and then, speak after. So thank you for that, Jane. And we have here Rod again saying maybe because the family never expressed feelings like that and don't know how to start. And it's great that he mentioned that, because always giving the benefit of the doubt, when it comes to like certain people, like, it's always like a first great step. And in my honest opinion, for me, I think it's also hard uh, to talk sometimes to your friends and loved ones, and of course your family. It's because, like, you don't really want to burden them, or you just feel like maybe they'll look at you differently, like Henry has mentioned earlier. But yes, Jane also mentioned here, sometimes it's harder to talk to family than friends, because family we have to encounter in everyday basis. But friends, it may be for some times we haven't seen each other and having much to say po. And then Marco Vela said here, we often fear judgment or rejection from our family more than from friends, causing us to act awkwardly or stay silent to avoid it. And we also have Rubik Joshua here saying, your family and loved ones will hurt you the most, but because of love, you will get over it. And when someone outside of your loved ones try to mistreat you or treat you down, you have already heard the worst before. So I love that everyone was able to share, different perspectives when it comes to reaching out to your loved ones and your family. And at the end of the day, like, since it's been mentioned that we're not all the same, everyone is different, right? And we have different perspectives and different up, upbringings. At the end of the day, uh, being able to empathize for them, um, and vice versa, um, that's something that will still be able to make you feel connected to one another, right, Henry and Jay?
So let's have a moment of honesty about connecting to one another, because our next question is about maybe potentially causing a disconnect to one another. So our next question we're going to ask is, do you assume too much instead of asking clearly? So this is a moment of truth, or a moment of um, honesty, because sometimes conversations, connections, and really trying to get to know each other, we talk about sometimes first impressions, where you meet someone for the first time and we think you have an idea of that person just because they dress. And so, especially when you know your family members so well, you start to learn their tone of voice, how they walk, their posture, their eye contact, and their demeanor, and how they are saying things. And then you start to assume, is he happy? He's like this usually when he's happy. Oh, he's like this when he's mad. Oh, he's like this when something bad happened. So I need to, I'm gonna make an assumption. So, do you, or maybe we can say do we assume too much instead of asking clearly? And what's wrong with that? Really, I think a follow up question to that is that a good thing or a bad thing? Should we assume too much? So, Jay, a moment of honesty. Do you assume too much instead of asking clearly?
I used to. I used to assume a lot when I was, I guess, younger, but now not as much. Right? I take the time to ask questions, because I've learned that assuming is because assuming, the reason I did it is that I assumed that I knew what the answers were or what they wanted. So I would assume, and I found out that it's actually less efficient, because the assumptions are generally always wrong. Most of the time it's wrong, and you never know. The thing is, we can't read minds, right? You don't know exactly what the person's feeling. Um, people's thoughts change, their choices change, their preferences change, and you don't know what they want. So it's better to actually clarify it. It's more efficient to get the answers, right? And to get like what the person wants, or what the person is thinking, or what they're feeling, right? You don't never want to assume that, oh yeah, they're fine, they're okay, right? They didn't that joke didn't offend them, right? Or anything like that. You want to be able to have some clarity. You don't I think clarity is important, and assuming is basically foggy glasses. That's how I see it, Henry.
I like that. I like the analogy is that when you can barely see something with foggy or snow or anything that's on your windshield as you're driving, you're guessing what is that? What is that? And you bang something, right? It's kind of dangerous to make an assumption and proceed with it when really it can only be a collision to a nastier confrontation later, I think, because you're going off of a premise that you're not even so sure of. So I think it's way more important to clarify because when you, especially if it's the wrong assumption, more so if it's a negative assumption, then you could be going down a dark path with a person where maybe that person never even had negative intentions anyway. So, what do you think, Belle, about assumptions and assuming uh, from maybe from past to present, or maybe even at present now? Do you assume too much instead of asking clearly?
Um, I I feel like when you're younger, that's the first response that like you will go for, right? Especially when you're confused and you're like, what? Like, why is it like that? Why is the situation like that? Why is that person being like that? But um like maturing um enabled me to realize that although you know 99% of the story, that 1% can flip the whole story, you know? And when it comes to giving the benefit of the doubt, that has brought me much more peace in my life and unnecessary misunderstandings, because giving the benefit of the doubt not only um, shows that you're giving like grace and mercy to them in a way where, like, like, why would you assume the worst, right? And on top of that, it allows them to show you that at the end of the day, um, it wasn't that bad, or it wasn't what you thought it was initially. And when it comes to, you know, uh trying to assume um the outcome or the behavior of someone, at the end of the day, both things are out of our control. We can only control what we can do and think of, right? So when it comes to when it comes to trying to figure out um, what what's happening, or trying to fix a situation, I feel like it'll be easier if you give the benefit of the doubt, or if you really want clarity, then go straight to the source instead of, like, just like walking on eggshells around the person, especially if they are your loved one and like your close friend, because you know how we mentioned earlier that maybe we don't want to um it's harder to go to our friends and loved ones because they might look at us differently. Um, it's true. Like, it's hard. Also because um, you in your heart, you know them, right? And trying to assume the worst out of it sometimes can not only hurt them, but also you, because you care for them. So uh, trying to avoid to put yourself in that situation, I think that's the best outcome. Like, trying to seek out peace, like seeking peace and like calmness in your mind, Henry and Jay.
So I think in assumptions, though, which will lead us to our next question, assumptions or assuming in general is more of a defensive thing because usually when we assume, we're trying to put pieces together of what the information we have, and even if you do your best to gather as much information you have, you'll just have a much more educated assumption anyway, right? It's still a guess on your interpretation. You're still assuming with more clarity, but it's a much more accurate assumption. And it maybe not even be called an assumption anymore or assuming anymore. But like I'm reading one of our comments from Robert Rick Joshua, sometimes you have to assume because they don't give you enough information, even when you have asked for more clarification multiple times, because some people do lock up. some people do hold back, which leads us to our next question. What happens when you stay silent instead of speaking up? There's a conversational breakdown sometimes where people, whether it be from natural shyness, whether it be for fear of not wanting to overcomplicate life or overcomplicate a situation, some people will stay silent. They'll hold back some important information. They won't share everything that they're feeling. They won't share everything that they're going through, and they'll stay silent. But I want to ask back to Belle again. What happens when you stay silent? What if I told you, Belle, to contain yourself? Don't share me any of your emotion. Stay silent, whether it be intentional or you chose yourself to stay silent. What happens when you stay silent instead of speaking up, Belle?
I think that'll build up a lot of like negative emotions because you know how we mentioned that small things like really make up those bigger things that also um works for negative things. So in order to avoid like a bigger issue, um you know, um it's better to be able to express yourself, maybe not not in a condescending way, but in gentler ways. And I think that being staying silent uh of staying silent doesn't enable you to seek that reconciliation and that peace of mind from both of your sides, because well, first of all, um they don't know how you feel. So for them, it's something like it looks like their actions made you feel make you feel like, oh, they don't care. It's because most of the time they don't know what's happening, right? But also on the other side, when uh you stay silent, it really isn't good for your own mental health, because um, that'll lead you to more overthinking, and that overthinking can like make you feel a bit more distant from your friends and loved ones. Henry.
Yeah, I can only picture from what you while you were saying it, a pressure cooker. You put pressure on a pressure cooker, or like if you put a firecracker under a bucket and you cover it, makes a much more louder and damaging effect to the surrounding area because you're compressing something that wants to come out, and I think that can be dangerous. And in the interest of time, I want to ask one more question for all of us to answer. I think we can all agree that staying silent is not the best thing to do, and it actually just it allows makes you burst out, builds resentment. The last question I'll ask in this part of our conversation is: have you ever overreacted because you misunderstood something? So let's kind of put it all together. Um, you made an assumption over a certain situation over someone who's speaking, and you try to gather as much information as you can, but maybe they stayed silent in some parts. And then you made your assumption, but then you overreacted. You reacted in a way based on the assumption, and you completely misunderstood. So, Jay, I'm going to ask you this question as we end this part of our conversation. Have you ever overreacted because you misunderstood something? I think this is a problem a lot of us fathers, a lot of us husbands, we probably do this a lot. So, what's your answer to this?
Yes. That's my answer. Overreacting is like something that I'm working on. I'm working on, and it's still work in progress. But basically, I think it comes like what we were just talking about earlier about being silent, right? If you're silent, if they're silent, there's going to be areas of fogginess, right? Areas where you don't know what you don't know, like what Joshua Rubik said, right? You don't know what you don't know, and if there's no clarity there because one party stays silent or you stay silent, you're not speaking up to seek clarification, then there can be conflict that stems from that or misunderstandings that comes from that. But then sometimes it's weird when you're asking for clarification on something. You have to be careful how you ask it, because you asking for more information can also come across in a way that might start conflict, that might start a misunderstanding. It's like, oh, why are you asking that? So your tone is very, very important as well when you're seeking clarity, right? So you need to seek it in a kind way, right? You have to seek it in a nice way. But I think it's important because otherwise, yeah, the overreaction comes in because, oh, either you've assumed something that they wanted, you assume that they only wanted one onion when they wrote down onion in the shopping list and not expecting that they actually wanted a bag of onions. Like, why would you buy one onion? Who buys one onion? And that sort of thing. So overreaction happens, and generally it stems from uh, lack of better communication. So have better communication is the answer.
Yeah, so I think that's a good climactic way to end the first part of our conversation because as we try to build better bonds, as we try to uh, communicate, converse, uh, the first part of our conversation says basically we really need to listen to each other. We really need to not just use our ears but our eyes as well to absorb what the other person is trying to say, but also kind of maintain that kindness throughout the conversation because you don't want someone to lock up. You don't want someone to stay silent. You want them to be able to express themselves, and you don't want to assume too much either, but you want to be able to keep the doors open in a very kind, peaceful way, choosing your words wisely so that you maintain your bonds together as you try to figure things out together because there are going to be some misunderstandings. There are going to be some times where uh, we're not we don't intend to say certain things, um, but then we're going to talk about this more in our conversation. Actually, is that tone, how we speak, thinking before we speak, cooling down before we speak. But we're going to talk about that more in the second part of our conversation. But Belle, I think we have a song request as we take our next break.
So for our So for our song request or our next break, it'll be 45, a request from brother Joshua Arteta. We'll be right back.
Your requested songs, our favorites, Faith and Melody Heartbeats.
Marami ang sa akin nangunguli. Dahilan ko ay gusto nilang marinig sa simpleng tanong kung bakit wala pa ako kaisang dibdib. Totoo lang ay di ko alam talagang sa akin nakalaan aking susuyuin at mamahalin. Bakit di pa siya dumarating? Hindi naman ako mainipin, hindi naman ako maramdamin. Di lang maiwasan ang mag-alala pagkat ako'y 45 na. Pakiusap naman, ako'y nakikiusap. Sigaw ng puso ko'y akin ang mahanap. Umaasang sa akin may nakalaan. Di ko lang alam kung saan at kailan. Hindi naman ako mainipin, siya. Siya na aking makakapareha. Oh, oh, oh. Nais ko nang mag-asawa bago ako bago ako bago ako maging 50.
Oh, ayan na pala siya.
Your requested songs, our favorites, Faith and Melody Heartbeats.
This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, Mom.
Homework?
Kind of. It's a school project, and you have to present someone from LA we admire.
Celebrity time. Who's it gonna be? Actor, athlete?
You.
Cool.
Yeah. You work hard. You help out with everything around the house. You never complain. You just do what's right, even when no one's watching.
I don't know what to say.
You don't have to. Just don't make me redo my project.
The world may celebrate stars, but the ones who shine brightest are not on screen. They're family. A message from INCRadio Los Angeles.
So earlier we were talking about, you know, staying silent and, assuming as well, and emphasizing as well about how listening is as important as speaking. And with that said, there are different ways to talk to someone, right? So why does tone matter more than we think or we can use as well, Jay?
So whenever I hear the word tone, I think about singing. Not that I can sing, but basically, you know how generally if someone has a nice tone when they're singing, it's pleasing to the ears. And I think it's the same way with communication. When you have a nice tone when you're talking to someone, when you're communicating your thoughts, your feelings, when you're communicating how your day went or your plans for the future and all of that, it's nice. It's easier to receive it when your tone is nice, right? When you've got the correct tone for it. So I think tone matters a lot more than we think because it can really impact the how the other person receives what we're trying to say, right? And I think it's important that we also, since we were talking about listening earlier, that we listen not only to what the person is saying, but also to how they're saying the tone of their voice, right? When people are sad, when people are, when people are going through something hard or challenging in their life, you'll hear it in their tone as well. They can say to you, good morning, but then you can tell that they are something weighing heavy on their heart by the tone that they use. So listening also to their tone of voice, a tone that they're saying or they're speaking with their words conveys a lot more than you think. And if you miss that, you miss a lot of the message as well. So tone plays a big role in my opinion, because a gentle tone can help to prevent war breaking out. Right? Wait, that's probably not the right joke to say. But basically, being defensive or anything else like that, having a gentle tone is going to help people to not get into such a big misunderstanding or disagreement with each other. If everyone just learns how to speak a little bit nicer with each other. That's my thoughts anyway. How about you, Henry?
So I think some of us as children, we were having a sibling rivalry or maybe an argument with our sibling, and then our parents says, "Say sorry," and you're like, "Sorry, sorry." You say it in the most grouchy way, "Sorry," and it
Good brother,
doesn't,
yeah.
you don't really, you don't mean it, right? It's not. You say sorry, and then 5 minutes later you do it again, so you're not really sorry. And the funny thing is, I think we kind of we still have that problem even as adults, I think, or at least from observing others sometimes in other conflicts. Do we really mean sorry when we say sorry to somebody? It's one of the hardest things to say, right? I think we've all saw that video. One of the hardest things to say is sorry.
Mm.
So tone matters in how we say something, and when you say it in the most tender way, um, if you say things in a different way, for example, you say "I love you" to someone, and "I love you" like in a question way, or your tone goes up. "I love you," "I love you," or sometimes it means more when you see it on a piece of paper. "I love you," because you already have in your mind it's being said in the most sincere way without even hearing a sound. And the tone of a red word, a word on paper, can be much more louder than the whisper of "I love you" from someone. So tone is a very powerful tool that it doesn't always have to be heard. It can even be seen in how we relay a message to someone.
And I believe that with what's been mentioned, I really love that that's been emphasized, that it really changes the message as well. Having the right tone will help you reach to the other person in a more efficient way. They will be able to either understand you more or uh, make you're able to make them more uh, feeling more heard or understood. And I also think that when it comes to your tone, you're basically catering to them. It's like with love languages or even with food, food catering. Uh, Not everyone likes the same food, and each caterer caters different types of food for different clients, right? And that's the same thing with tone. So each person is accustomed to different ways. So as we mentioned earlier, right? So that's really something that we should always take into account when speaking with our friends and loved ones. But with that said, right? Um, since we talked about tone, what does it mean to think before speaking or thinking before you speak, Henry?
So I think this is a very dangerous thing to do, is to speak straight from the emotion, um,
Mm.
even if it's a happy emotion. If I'm so happy and I go into a car dealership and the salesman tries to sell me the car that I'm so ecstatic about, and "Do you want to buy this car?" Yes, it just comes out so excitedly. That can get me into a dangerous situation, because if the car salesman does his job correctly and plays into your psychology and just massages your ego into becoming a person who wants to make their dreams come true on that day, and just say yes to buying the luxury car that you've always pictured yourself to be, then you will go home bankrupt, but with a nice car, right? So it's not always just about speaking out of sadness, speaking out of anger, even speaking out of extreme happiness can make us be very careless into a situation. And then you go home to your wife and you say, uh, "I bought a car. I was so happy, but now we're poor," and it's not gonna end well for anyone. So it's very important, I think, uh, to really think before you speak instead of speaking from emotion. Think about your finances. Think about what the impact is of what it is you're going to say if you're extremely happy to someone. Yes, you can come to my party. Yes, you can come to my wedding. I only have 50 seats, and you invited 100 because you're so happy to share the love of your life to everyone. You want everyone to celebrate. It's beyond your means. If you're extremely angry, probably the things that we are more commonly aware of when you're very angry and you say something to your spouse, and you're not thinking before you speak. You're not thinking about how they feel. You're not thinking about how they're going to receive it. You're not thinking about how it will hurt them permanently with a certain thing that you feel at the moment. You're not thinking before you speak. It's very important to think before you speak so that no one gets harmed with something you really don't intend to say. You need to be very thoughtful in what we say to someone. And even it goes back to our first question, how in Bell's family they have a group chat where they share things to each other. It's very important to know that when someone thinks of you, it means a lot. So when you think before you speak and they see that you're very careful in how you speak, it means so much more that you're trying to be as gentle with your words to maintain the bond that you have with your family and your friends.
I really love that, um, because it's true. Sometimes, out of excitement or out of frustration, you might say something that slipped out of your mouth, right? And with that said, since you mentioned about like thinking before speaking, right, Henry? Um, when you're upset, is it better to talk immediately or cool down first, Jay?
I definitely will go with the cooling down first option because it's that moment that gives you to pause, and it really forces you to think first before you speak, right? Because if you what I found, if you try to, I guess, speak immediately, especially if you're in a stressful situation, if things there are misunderstandings in the way, right, you're trying to work out. If everyone's emotions are heightened, like what Henry said, you don't want to speak straight away because you're not thinking clearly. You're driven by emotions. And usually if it's heightened emotions, whether it's good like happy emotions or it's the more ones that can actually break up friendships and relationships, right? You want to be able to think with a clear head, you know, everything is kind of like just focused on perhaps the problem or your view of what the problem is, and you're not being able to put yourself in the other person's position, understand it from their point of view, right? You don't have any of that ability when your emotions are too heightened, right? When it's too stressful, everyone's too angry, and emotions are just all over the place. So it's very important to cool down first. I know my parents used to do that, especially when there's three of us, and just like with kids, right? With kids, you kind of like annoy each other a little bit, right? And when you get to that point, my parents always separated us and said like, go cool down first, before you say anything, because it's important. One thing that my parents, especially my dad, instilled in us is that if you want to build up that relationship, that connection with people, especially your loved ones. The acronym that he instilled in us was actually UTARL, which doesn't mean it's not an actual word. At least I don't think so. But UTARL is a way for you to understand people and connect with them so that you can form a stronger bond with them. And it stands for UTARL, since we're talking about acronyms, and Kuya Rod has a lot of acronyms in the chat. UTARL is understanding, tolerance, acceptance, respect, empathy, and love. And those are kind of like the qualities that you need so that you can, if you include that with how you connect with people when you're speaking with someone, right? It allows you to say the right words and to be a bit more calm to de-escalate the situation. So that to do that, you got to de-escalate your emotions first so that you can come from a place of love. You can come from a place of understanding, of tolerance, of acceptance, and respecting the other person, and maybe empathizing or putting yourself in their point of view to understand where they're coming from, right? I mean, people feel things because they see it from a situation that we might not be seeing it. So we are not able to see it from their situation, from their position, if we're only focused on us. So cool down first, de-escalate the situation by de-escalating your emotions, Belle.
And I think that with cooling down first as well, not only brings you peace, but also um it allows them to think about what happened as well if they are aware, if that makes sense. So like both parties um have that allotted time to actually debrief in their heads or in their minds what actually happened. But of course, if one party is not aware, then of course the reflection and the debriefing is only on one side. But I think it's easier when it's two people and they're both aware that you don't want to make the wrong move, whether you're in the right or wrong, because especially if you care and love for that person, you don't want to make them upset even more, or you don't want to de-escalate the situation even more. So I love that it's been mentioned about, what is it, a utorial understanding. I don't know the other the other words, but thank you for sharing that, Jay. I really love that most of us are really like um on the same wavelength when it comes to trying to uh, de-escalate a situation. And I can see here some comments that Jane here said, thinking before you speak means one one have to mind his or her words to the and the other person may take it in po. And Marco Velo said here, cool down first so that you can control your emotions. And Joshua Rubik said, some need to say it uh, like it is to get out of their system. Others cool down. Different temperaments, but just need to love in the end. And that's true. At the end of the day, the reason why you want to talk is not because you want to be right, it's because you want to make things right, and you want to reconciliate as well, right? Although it's nice to be right from time to time, right? But it's either you're right and you lose the other person, or you both find an amendment, like you both find yeah, an amendment, and you meet in the middle to make things work, right? And Rod here said better words and better bonds is like ube, um ultimate bonding emotionally, and I really love that. So yes, we mentioned about um cooling down first or not, and thinking before speaking. So when we are talking to the person or they're talking to us, how do we respond when someone corrects us, Jay?
Well, I can tell you like how I respond. But for others, I mean, I'm sure it's different for each person. But one thing that I've learned over the years, when it comes to respond, especially when you're being corrected, sometimes it hurts, right? When you're being told that you're wrong, or because that's generally what correction is, like you did something wrong, and nobody likes to be told that they're wrong. But it comes from a, like, we need to understand that if someone is taking the time to correct us, then it comes from a place of care, of love, right? Because if someone doesn't care about you or doesn't love you to worry about you, then why would they correct you? Why would they bother? So that's one of the things that I learned growing up, but I think we also learned that, right, in our services. When we attend our worship services, the message that we receive is that when God loves you, he'll correct you when you're doing wrong, when you're doing things that's not what he wants. What you should be worried about is when he stops correcting you, right? So I think correction is important. So when that does happen, I've learned to take in the lesson. Take in the lesson, right? Let go of your pride, let go of your ego, let go of the I'm right about everything and I know everything. Let go of all of that, right? Listen with humility, listen to what you can learn from what they're saying, from what the situation is. And again, it's about seeking to understand and not just seeking to wait for the pause so that you can cut in and justify your actions to why you might have been correct, right? Just like be humble, take it in, and just learn from it. Learn from it and humble yourself. I think humility and humbleness, that's another skill that for some people it comes naturally, and for others, you need to develop and learn what it means to be humble, especially when you're being corrected and when you've done something wrong. The ability to acknowledge mistakes is another important fact, because that's another important skill to have, to acknowledge that you've done something wrong and to take ownership on it. I think that's a leadership skill as well, right? So parents or anyone that might consider themselves to be a leader in something, or people look up to you in some shape or form, right? Somebody looks up to you. People always, there's somebody out there looking up to us, and we want to be able to also share that skill, that if we did something wrong, we'll take the ownership and we'll own it, we'll acknowledge that we did something wrong, and we'll be humble to receive the lesson wherever it's coming from. Because like we said, like what I mentioned earlier, what you want to worry about is when God stops correcting you. So when nobody is correcting you when you're doing something wrong, I think that's the most worrying time, right? So when people are out there giving you corrections, letting you know things that you could do better, receive it with humility, because at least you know that they care, right? They care about you. They've got a certain level of care for you. That's what I have to say, Belle.
I thank you for that, Jay. And I think
Actually,
that it really oh yeah, sorry. What were you
I just want to
saying?
quickly give a moment to read out a couple of the comments from our chat, because they've been posting their comments and they're joining in our conversation. Let me just read a few, because there's a lot there. So Kuya Rod's got a few acronyms in there. I'll read one because this one's a nice one. Better words, better bonds, the title of our topic today. His acronym for that: being expressively thoughtful to everyone radiantly, while our realness does something beautiful every time. Thankful to encounter relationships building our needed daily strength. And there's messages there for us. So I love that, Kuya Rod. It's also always awesome to receive his acronyms on our show. They all agree that tone is important. Mario Cavello says tone shows what a person is truly feeling, often revealing anger, stress, or passion that contradicts their actual words. So tone is important there. Another comment here from Jane. She says, thinking before you speak means one have to mind his own words, other the person may take it input. I think we read that one, right? And quick shout out to Mario Cavello saying, shout out po to my grandson, Elijah Calvello. Kuya Rod also says, better words and better bonds is like ube. Ultimate bonding emotion. I think we also read that. But yes, thank you to everyone that's been sharing. And hello to Joel Soriano there in our chat, greeting us as well. Happy viewing, everyone. He says, viewing from the locale of Collingwood, District of Edmonton, Canada. Hello, hello to Joel Soriano there in our chat, tuning in with us. Remember, happy wife is happy life. Wife is always right, but husband is never wrong. That's from Joshua Rubik in our chat. Back to you, Belle.
I love those comments, and I love that you know, all of us are trying to look at the brighter side of things. And you mentioned about letting go of pride and listening with humility, and that's true, because it really takes a lot of courage in responding correctly to someone who is trying to correct us as well. And with that said, how can we truly say what we feel? Like share what we want to share what we feel without hurting others, especially if we are upset, Henry.
So I'm gonna have a controversial answer to this. Uh, I don't think we can completely say what we feel without hurting another person, because when you need to be honest, the truth will hurt sometimes, and you can only use so much words to make it buttery or sweet and kind. But if it's not an answer that they are looking to hear, it would still hurt. Um, you want to try your best. The effort to try to lessen the impact of the truth sometimes. And I'm not saying every conversation is always going to be a harmful conversation, but when it comes to a topic or a moment of honesty, when maybe you're trying to correct someone, maybe you're trying to enlighten someone, maybe you're trying to uh, you're getting a reality check of a situation of did I was I accepted to this college, or was I was I good enough to make it to the team? Was I good enough to be casted as this role? And when you want to give a critique on someone's performance or someone's ability to convey a message or their quality of singing, sometimes the truth will affect how they are at that point in time. Not being good enough can be one of the hardest things to be told. So will it hurt their feelings? It will. But you can try to lessen the blow with the words that you choose. You don't say anything in the much more hurtful with an attempt to harm them, but you can twist it in the sense of you choose positive language, you choose kind language, you choose building language, you choose words to make someone feel better. Maybe next year you'll have a much better time to prepare because you'll have all this time to uh, harness your skill to become a much better athlete, a better singer, a better performer, or you'll have enough resources, or you'll have a better score in your exams so that you can be accepted to the college you want to go. There's going to be some level of critique that will hurt, but if you take into account, especially if you're talking to a loved one who's asking, how did I sound? How did I dress? How was this? Build them up, build people up, use positive words, use positive language so that it won't hurt as much, but they can definitely feel the love that you try to portray to them. Oh, Bill, sorry, you're muted.
Thank you for that, Henry. And I really love that. It's something that sometimes it's overlooked. Some people want to be brutally honest, right? Jay and Henry, but sometimes they only focus on being brutal than being honest. And with that reminder that you just share with us, um, I think it's true. Sometimes you just need to be kind to others to lift them up and also feel uplifted as well, because the environment that you create around you will also enable you to be better, feel and also feel better. That's why I feel like what's been shared so far, especially with our team live chat there, um, it's always at the end of the day, it's always about love and like understanding, right? That's what we always aim for when it comes to communicating with others. And yes, I think that with that said, tone, body language, eye contact as well, that's really important because when you are having a heart to heart conversation, it's always better to be there fully present, right? And I think that overall, better words and better bonds is always the best outcome, right, Jay?
No, that's very true. And as we continue this part, we want to actually find out how we can level up our communication skills because building up our communication skills and being able to uh, speak correctly to our loved ones, our family members, can help level up our bonds, our family bonds as well. We've been talking about just earlier, just then, about responding when people correct us, being humble, how to say things that we feel without hurting others. So, speaking in a kind way, watching your tone, right? All of those are important. Being humble and is important so that it allows us to admit when we've done something wrong. We know that we make mistakes too. Like nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all have shortcomings, right? It's important that we let go of whatever pride that we hold on to and just remember that we need to humble ourselves as well, especially as Christians, right? For us, we know that it's one of those things that we hold on to is that we weren't made perfect. So we do make mistakes, and humbling yourself is part of our uh, our character. Right? There's always something for us to learn, and there's always a way for us to improve. So with that, apologizing, I think that's another important part of communication. Right? When we humble ourselves, when we're talking about it with our loved ones, with our family members, right, so that we can create better bonds with each other, The better words to use, especially when you've done something wrong, is apologize, right? So some people out there, it might be even portrayed on TV, on social media, that apologizing might be a sign of a weakness, especially for a guy, perhaps, right? A guy apologizing, that's weak, right? But that's not so true. Why do you think apologizing shouldn't be seen as a sign of weakness, but it's actually a strength? What's your thoughts on that? Like, when it comes to apologizing, why is it not a weakness, but it's actually a strength, especially if we're talking about building better bonds with our family members and the people that are important in our lives? Uh, Henry, maybe you can enlighten us a little bit from your experience.
So I remember when my daughter was kind of upset because she didn't have a good grade, um, in one of her assignments, and she was, she said she tried her best, and it wasn't the grade that lived up to what she had hoped for. And I was just straight up honest with her. I was like, you know, I had an F before. Don't feel so bad. It's okay. Having an F isn't as bad as it sounds either. And she didn't have an F. She had maybe like a C. It wasn't it wasn't a good grade. But I wanted to show that I had a much more uh, vulnerable situation. And she was trying to say sorry to me, like, sorry I didn't live up to the expectation that she had set for herself. Um, so I had to say, in my own way, sorry, your dad is not perfect as you think. And it wasn't a straight, direct apology, but it was more of just showing how um, we can't succeed every time. We're not perfect. To be human is to be imperfect. And the more that we are caught in situations where we make a mistake, or we did something unintentionally to someone and you say sorry, I think it's the ability to say sorry is, especially nowadays, when you say sorry, it shows you care. When you actually accidentally hit someone on the shoulder while you're walking and you stop what you're doing to say, in German, Entschuldigung, or I'm sorry, es tut mir leid, or whatever the language you're going to say sorry to someone, you're stopping and pausing for that moment just to acknowledge that what you did wrong to someone. It's a moment of being human, and to say, that wasn't my intention. Um, I think it's strength because it allows us to acknowledge uh, that I'm better than this. That, I may not be perfect, but I can acknowledge what I did. I can take the accountability, and I hope you forgive me. And it shows that you're sincere in that apology. And I think that's strong. I think it's much stronger to show that vulnerability because you're being brave. Apologizing to some extent for someone, it's a sign of strength to me. It really is. It also allows you to even establish deeper connections, better bonds, like our title.
Yeah, I agree with that, Henry. Like, in terms of apologizing, like, I don't know why some people would think it's a sign of weakness, because it takes strength to admit that you've done something wrong. It takes strength to own up to your faults. It takes strength for you to say sorry from the heart to somebody that you've hurt, especially your family member, and you make changes so that you can move together forward, right? It takes strength to do all of that. I think the opposite is really what's weak. If you just sort of ignore it, if you kind of don't make any changes in your life to become better, like, how is that strength? Right? Strength is when you're pushing up against resistance, right? For all those people out there that goes to the gym or lift any weight to become stronger physically, you need to push against resistance. And if you're not doing that, if you're not making changes, that's hard, that's challenging, that's a form of resistance to push about it to get better. How are you becoming stronger? So apologizing is difficult, it's hard, but it's resistance that's going to make you stronger. It's going to make your bond with your family members, with your loved ones stronger. If you can apologize from the heart. Say that you're sorry, but don't just say sorry, right? Because I know people that just say sorry, and you ask them, what are you sorry for? I'm just sorry. Right? It's like, at least know what you're sorry for, right? Take accountability of it, because holding on to your pride and ego, that's not going to fix anything, right? You need to move forward. The first step to that is recognizing our shortcomings as humans, right? So let's do a quick round of some quick tips to keep the habit of having clear communication, right? So we've talked about so much things today in our program. We talked about your tone. We talked about the importance of silence, but the importance of speaking up, the importance of being able to have communication. We've talked about so many things. Give us some of your quick tips, and we've got a lot in chat as well that's joining us. Hello to everyone that's been sharing so much insights, to Jane, to Rod, to Mario, to Joshua, to everyone there in chat that's been sharing so much insights on our conversation today. What are some quick tips that you can share with us so that we can keep the habit of having clear communication, that we can keep that in our daily life? We can work on it, right? We can become better, right? Use better words so that we can have better bonds. Type it down in chat, just a couple of quick tips that you have. Let us know. Belle, let's start off with you. What are some of your quick tips to keep the habit of having clear communication with your family, with your friends?
I feel like reassurance really plays a big part in that, especially when you're joking around so much. You're like, oh, like it's sometimes the joke can be like out of line, right? So sometimes just like, oh, I'm just joking. Like, it's just like, um, reassurance. And sometimes just reminding them, like, oh, yeah, like I thought of you. Um, when something like occurred, I don't know, but I feel like those small little things that remind them how much you care for them really goes a long way, because no matter how far or near you are to each other, especially like in terms of like um, having different schedules, right? How can you communicate, right? How can you stay connected? And those ways, I think reassurance and really making time for them really shows that um, um, really shows that you have clear intentions and clear communication, because at least every day somehow you still keep in contact with them. Jay.
I like that. I like that one. My one is especially for the guys out there. I want to share this tip with all the guys out there, that in case that you don't already do this, be open to your family members that you want details. Right? Ask for clarity straight up. It's like just say, I just need the details, right? The importance of everything is in the details of what you're saying. So don't just give me the general thing. Give me the details. I like the details of everything. So for me, it's just remember that we are not mind readers. So use your words, use them kindly to ask for more clarity so that you have the details. That's my kind of quick tip there. How about you, Henry? What's a quick tip you can share?
So when you play basketball, you do 1,000 shots. When you play, if you're a quarterback, you do 1,000 throws. If you want clear communication, in my opinion, you really just have to practice it. Clear
Mm.
communication, intentionally clear communication. I'll speak from personal experience because I'm a big advocate of public speaking, and I do enjoy the improvement of public speaking, and that I've become a much stronger communicator just by being on INC radio. And so when I go to work, I'm able to portray my message very clearly because we practice this communication all the time. And you get more comfortable in communicating ideas and what you're trying to say and descriptive words and images. And if there's anything that I like to do to make sure I like to get my point across to someone, is to paint a clear picture of what I'm trying to talk about. Like if I talk about a sandwich of communication, it's you have two ears and one mouth. That's a conversational sandwich that requires you to listen more than it is to speak, right? So you can already see two ears and a mouth. So when you practice your communication, it becomes much more clear, much more sharper, and you actually it's more fun. Communicating becomes more fun because you know how to listen intently and you know how to respond to the person after clearly listening to them first and foremost. And then that conversation will be so much more enlightening and inspirational and much more progressive for the both of you.
I love that. So from Henry's response, practice communication, practice it with your loved ones, and adding on to my one with that is that when you practice it, don't think that we are mind readers, right? Whether male to female, female to male, whatever, we can't read each other's minds. Like actually speak out what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Like use words, use words, use kind, helpful words. Because remember that we're not mind readers. And I like what Belle added as well about the importance of reassurance. Build each other up, right? Just adding on to Belle's response, build each other up, right? And make sure that you are reassuring each other and being each other's love and support system, and call them out. If you really love each other and you see someone making a mistake, you're a family member, you call that's part of communication, calling them out on their mistakes. But that's something you have to practice, right? Like what Henry said, you have to practice it because it comes from a place of love, because you care about them, right? You care about them, and that's why there's a proper way to approach someone that someone that you want to speak to, that they might be doing something that may not be right or not aligning with the values that we hold, especially our Christian values. We've got so many other topics. We've got so many other comments in our chat. So before we go to our last question, to lighten up everything, actually, let me ask it. The final thing, we've talked so much about the importance of using better words so that we can create better bonds, the importance of communication, tone, silence, speaking up, all of those things, right? Making sure that you're speaking from emotions, taking time to cool down. So much that we've covered, and sharing some insights to have always an open line of clear communication with our loved ones. The last thing that we're going to ask there is, what is one of your favorite things that you like to do with your family? And as you're typing out your answer, just give us one thing that you love to do with your family, right? An activity where you are able to spend time with your family and actually be present and have that line of communication. Share with us what's something that you love to do with your family. Henry, if you could just read a couple of comments, and I see a few new greetings there in our chat.
Okay, so I have from let's see, I have from some quick tips to keeping clear communication from Mario Calvello. Make your communication clear, concise, and consistent. And from our previous question about why do you think apologizing is not a weakness but a strength, Joshua Rubik says it is okay to make mistakes, just don't do it again. Said somebody in the household. Just be sure to be quick to apologize before it's too late to apologize. And I think sometimes why wait to say something good? Apologizing is where you connect. That's where you come back together. That's where someone gets off of the high spot, goes back down. Apologizing, the acronym from Clear Rod is accountability poses our love on growing in zeal, inspiring necessarily, greatly. So to answer the question about what favorite family things to do, group hugs. I'll often pick up my daughters, or the other one's too big now, so I'll carry the small one. We just have one big group hug. Of course, always eating together. I like to do junk food day where we just eat junk food on a Friday.
Yeah. So we do that
Fun.
too.
Yeah, it's just so, what's the word? Like a release. Like we got through the week, school and work, we did it. And the favorite one is camping out in the living room. We sleep all together in the living room sometimes with just blankets on the floor, and they have to listen to Daddy snore. So that's one of our things.
We have a tent that we set up in the living room during winter because it gets really cold in the house. But inside the tent, it's quite warm, and we eat popcorn. That's our Friday nights. Belle, what's one favorite thing that you like to do with your family?
I feel like movie nights and like binge watching series. That's like my favorite thing to do. And I remember like especially like last year towards the end of the year, there was this series that we really wanted to binge watch. But of course, like some episodes are really long, like 1 hour. So what we did is just having a weekly thing, and it's something that we looked forward to like every week, and it was just so fun. And each time there would be like different types of like cuisines as well, so that was really fun. And I think anything involving food is always fun to do with your family, and it's just really enjoyable. And I love that most of us like mentioned something about food as well, so that's great.
Food and adventures. Joshua Rubik says gatherings that involve food. So definitely, we have so many activities, and we hope that you're all you've got these activities with your family, you're sharing that time with them, the importance of sharing your moments with them, but also having that communication to catch up, right? Because depending on the age of our family members, it may only be like once a week, right, that we can catch up with them. But we should make those moments as memorable as possible, and important for us to create those better bonds with each other. And with that, we're going to leave you with these final words that we should all remember, that our Almighty God teaches us to speak with kindness, patience, and love, especially within our families. Communications rooted in faith encourages understanding rather than conflict. As Christians, we practice humility by listening, compassion by understanding, and self control by choosing our words wisely. When we allow God to guide our conversations, we strengthen our family bond and create a home filled with peace and unity. And with that, we're going to leave you with this week's verse of the week. Belle, what is our verse of the week today? This week.
So for our verse of the week, it'll be Family Matters, connecting through communication.
Hello, everyone. It seems nowadays we turn to online resources in order to connect with others. But relying too heavily on technology can potentially cause a relationship and communication to deteriorate, especially between members of a household. So, how can families avoid a communication disconnect between the parents and the children? I'm Brother Donald Pinnock. And let's read here in Proverbs 6, and the verses are 20 to 23, as we rely on the Bible to provide the answer. My son, keep your father's commands and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them upon your heart forever, fasten them around your neck. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For these commands are a lamp, this teaching is a light, and the corrections of discipline are the way to life. So, first of all, when it comes to the children, because our parents have been appointed by God to oversee the family, let's listen respectfully to their admonitions and be fully present or aware when they are speaking to us. Because their advice, just as we read, when you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For these commands are a lamp, this teaching is a light. As for the parents, we should find time to have meaningful face to face conversations with our children. And while doing so, we should strive to reinforce God's teachings in their hearts, their mind, and most especially their life. At the same time, parents should be mindful that when discussing matters with their children, that their son or daughter would not become discouraged and quit trying, as we can read in Colossians 3:21, because we are too abrasive in our tone of voice or use of words. No parent wants their children to become disheartened and lose ambition in life. So let's speak with one another in a manner that will be beneficial to both parties. Our time with our family members is indeed very precious. Let's not allow the prevalence of technological entertainment or communication to take away from the meaningful moments we could and should have with each other. Dear friends, that is our verse of the week. Please stay safe, stay strong, and stay faithful. God bless.
Thank you to Brother Donald for that inspired message to take with us for the week ahead. And yes, we are now at the towards the end of our show. Jay, do you have any greetings or shout outs?
Yes, thank you again to everyone that tuned in with us. Hello to Tita Gloria Antonio saying greetings from Tagaytay City Local, and to everyone there that's been sharing so many insights on today's conversation. Rod, Jane, Mario, Joshua, and everyone else has been sharing their insights. Thank you for always tuning in, and we hope you've taken something away to help you with your own bonds with your loved ones there. And also shout out to my wife Jem and to our daughter Lena. And shout out to Erica for preparing today's topic conversation. Henry and Belle as well for helping me co-host today's broadcast.
Thank you so much, Jay. And Henry, do you have any shout outs as well?
Shout outs to my wife and children who are just on the other side of this door. Uh, And shout out to my Central Europe family for always tuning in. Shout out to the other viewers, the quiet viewers. I know there's viewers who are watching who are not participating in the chat, and that's okay. It's okay that you're there not chatting, but you're there listening and being part of our show. So hope to see you again in our next broadcast. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you so much, Henry and Jay, for always being here. And also, shout out to my family, my mom at Erica, Arian, Sam, Sam, and Dan Dan, and to everyone who is able to support us and join us in our topic for today. And once again, thank you for joining us. And I'm Val from the United Kingdom.
I'm Henry here in Germany.
And I'm Jay here in Australia, and we have been your hosts on today's broadcast. To close up our show, we'll be listening to the INC original music titled As for Me and My Family. Join us again for the rest of the week here on Faith and Melody. Take care, everyone. Have a great start to your week. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you, Kuya Tex.
Many people turn their back on God, occupied with earthly pleasures of this world.
They let their love grow cold. In my home, obedience prevails. We'll be faithful all our days. Our God will never betray.
Anywhere we go, evil exists. Temptations are everywhere, but we must resist.
Decide today whom you will serve.
But as for me and my family, we will worship our God. But as for me and my family, we will, we'll serve the Lord God. With the guardian of our faith we stand firmly by his side till we reach the promised land.
We'll stand by his side. No matter what happens, we will remain inside the Church of Christ until the end.
Until the end.
Anywhere we go, evil exists. Temptations are everywhere, but we must resist. Decide today whom you will serve. But as for me and my family, we will worship our God. But as for me and my family, we will, we'll serve the Lord God. My family, we will worship our God. But as for me and my family, we will, we'll serve